She sat across from me, wearing a tight dress, eyes blazing with bold defiance, as if she already knew how it would all end. The night began with a simple dinner and ended in the back of an SUV, where passion became too intense to stay within the bounds of decency. It seemed like just an episode, a temporary fix in a marriage where the feelings had long gone cold, but that just once and never again quickly lost all meaning when the doors opened to reveal not just infidelity, but an entire performance capable of shattering everything you once called home. 3 pairs of men's shoes by the door, burst tires, night streets humming with fury, and a morning that began with 3 unfamiliar women in your bed. You weren't the one who broke the rules. You just witnessed how they were trampled into the floor. And now only one question remains. Among all the players in this twisted play, who's the true traitor, and who's merely collateral damage in someone else's game? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments, so let's get started. For what seems like a lifetime, I've shared my world with my wife. Like any couple whose story stretches over the years, our relationship has been marked by both triumphs and trials. There have been disagreements, moments where we drifted apart, and times when we managed to reconnect. Nothing ever unfolded in a sensational way, but it's true that after so long together, a sense of monotony can creep in. Life often reduced itself to a string of similar days, dominated by work, bills, and a steady stream of daily obligations. There were periods when an unmistakable coolness settled over our marriage, something neither of us was eager to address directly. If I'm honest, we sometimes allowed the silence to fester instead of dealing with it head-on. But whenever it felt like we might not find our way back, we discovered an unusual solution that helped us stay afloat: opening our marriage. I realize that sounds unconventional. To be clear, this wasn't a license for chaos. We approached it with caution and rarely took that route. It served more as an emergency release valve, something we considered only when every other option had failed. The rules were specific. If we sensed that our bond had reached a breaking point, we'd grant each other permission to seek intimacy outside our marriage, but always within strictly defined boundaries. Our first rule was absolute: no involvement with anyone from our close social circle or family. That was never up for negotiation. The second rule stated that neither of us could have more than one external partner at any given time. Lastly, encounters with someone else could happen just once, never a repeat with the same person. We set these boundaries to avoid personal attachment. Our intent was to keep things strictly physical, a way to release tension, reset ourselves, and then come back together. On this occasion, I was the one who initiated things. Working in law enforcement, I suddenly had a shot at a big promotion. Along with it came relentless hours and a mountain of extra work, patrols, endless reports, and round-the-clock responsibilities. I'd come home completely depleted, with barely enough energy to string a sentence together, much less be a supportive partner. All my attention was on advancing at work, and the gap between my wife and me only grew wider. I could see things heading in the wrong direction, but I felt stuck. She reached out to me, tried to bridge the gap, but my responses were curt and distant. I was aware that I was letting her down, but I felt emotionally numb and had no idea how to change things. Eventually, our connection thinned to the point where we were just sharing a house, and we both knew what would come next. This process wasn't new to us. We'd walked this path before, and it had always helped us find our way back, at least until we could tackle the underlying problem. We arranged a quiet night together, soft music in the background, a bottle of wine opened, and revisited the boundaries we'd agreed on. This wasn't about replacing each other or filling a void. It was a short-term measure, a pause that might help us see each other anew. After calmly reviewing our agreement, we went to bed knowing that the next day would mark the beginning of another chapter in our unique arrangement. At first, nothing shifted. Neither of us rushed out to meet someone or jumped into dating apps. I was buried in work, and she was kept busy managing things at home. Still, it was only a matter of time before one of us would act on the arrangement. Within a few days, my wife found someone. He was looking for a similar one-time encounter and, like us, was in an open marriage himself. This man had 2 kids, ran his own logistics firm, and had the kind of looks you'd expect from a movie star: tall, athletic, and effortlessly charming. These details matter for reasons that will become clear. Meanwhile, I felt compelled to find someone as well, if only to keep things even. Eventually, after what seemed like forever, I managed to carve out some time and arranged to meet someone at my favorite Italian restaurant in Bakersfield. The woman who arrived was younger than I'd imagined, carrying herself with an easy confidence that instantly drew me in. It was clear right away that she wasn't interested in drawn-out conversation over dinner. Her tight, striking dress made her intentions obvious. We hadn't even finished our drinks before she signaled she was ready to move on. Here's something relevant. She came from a big family, 6 kids, with 4 sisters. Keep that in mind. It'll matter soon. I settled the tab, and we headed for the nearest hotel, only a short stroll away. But what happened next caught me off guard. Despite the drinks, I hesitated before getting out of the car. I sat there, trying to decide what to do, but she grew impatient and pressed me to act. The look in her eyes told me she didn't want to wait any longer. She leaned over, proposed we forget the hotel altogether, and suggested we just use the car. Faced with someone so striking and direct, how could I refuse? I agreed. We got into my Chevrolet Tahoe, basically a mobile suite, and before I could even start the engine, she told me to pull into a nearby alley. My instincts from years on the force made me wary, but I went along with it. I turned off the car and she wasted no time, immediately drawing me close and pulling at my shirt. "I can't wait anymore," she breathed. Suddenly all thoughts of the hotel vanished. Her need was unmistakable, and I was eager to respond. I helped her out of her dress, and soon the 2 of us were lost in the moment. The Tahoe's spaciousness meant comfort wasn't a concern. We ended up spending the entire night in that vehicle, caught up in a passion so fierce it felt as if the SUV itself was alive. It stands out as one of the most memorable nights I've ever had, perhaps even the best. When I woke up that morning, I found myself torn between feeling at peace and feeling guilty. A part of me wanted to relive the night before, but some inner warning kept me from entertaining that idea. I gently woke her and let her know I needed to head out for work. There was a trace of disappointment in her expression, though she didn't try to persuade me to stay. I gave her a ride back to her apartment, and just before she got out, she leaned over and kissed me passionately, almost as if she wished that was just the start of something between us. But I understood the reality, or at least I thought I did. I had no plans to see her again. For me, it was a one-time thing, exactly what we'd both agreed to from the start. I enjoyed myself, but I wasn't looking for anything more. As I drove away, I told myself this was the final chapter. I couldn't have been further from the truth. Days passed quietly. My wife seemed genuinely taken with the new guy she'd been seeing. She didn't talk about him much, but it was obvious she was happy. Occasionally, she would casually mention going out for drinks with him or share how they'd discussed their marriages. I never asked for details, nor did I care to know more. We had set certain boundaries. As long as she respected those, I was willing to ignore the fact that she spent evenings with him and, as far as I knew, had only slept with him once. Time kept moving forward. My wife continued seeing the same man she'd met. For me, that single evening in the car had been more than enough. The woman I'd been with would send me messages now and then, but I always managed to come up with a reason not to meet up again. I blamed work, or said I was busy with other commitments. The truth was, I didn't want to repeat that night. After about a week, I finally had a rare day off. You might think that, after a night as intense as ours, Agreeing to another meeting was playing with fire, but I told myself I could handle it. I had no plans for anything more than a simple, friendly meetup, just something casual. I only said yes to another date because I didn't want to go searching for someone else, and honestly, I didn't want to spend my day off doing nothing while my wife was out having a good time. This time, we kept things straightforward and decided to take a walk in the nearby park. When we saw each other, I gave her a brief kiss, but it didn't go any further. We spent the afternoon strolling, sipping coffee, and chatting, but I could tell her thoughts were elsewhere. She kept dropping hints that maybe we could go for a drive again like before. I laughed it off and said I just wanted to enjoy a calm evening outside. As the sun set, we found a bench and sat quietly, watching the sky change colors. I noticed she was becoming frustrated, probably realizing our meeting would end without anything intimate happening. That's when she became more direct. She touched me in unmistakable ways, even slipping her hand beneath my shirt. There was no confusion about what she wanted. I admit, the temptation was strong. I could have gone along with it. But in that moment, I decided and told her clearly that I didn't want to repeat what had happened last time. She was clearly hurt and disappointed, but she didn't press any further. After our walk, I drove her back home, and before she got out, she kissed me once more. That night, though, didn't go as I'd expected. When I got home, I planned to tell my wife about my walk, maybe even try to frame it as something positive. I assumed she wouldn't mind, especially since nothing romantic had happened. If anything, I thought it might reassure her, but I was wrong. As I pulled into the driveway, I spotted a vehicle I recognized, a Range Rover. I realized right away whose car it was, the tall, charismatic friend my wife had started seeing, the one who looked like a movie star. He was the man my wife had been seeing as part of our agreement. But what was he doing at our house, and so late at night? He'd never visited before, at least as far as I knew. The moment I stepped inside, my anxiety spiked. There were multiple pairs of men's shoes scattered near the front door. A wave of dread hit me. I instantly sensed something was wrong. Without stopping, I headed straight to the bedroom, and what I saw was worse than anything I'd feared. My wife was in bed with her friend, and he wasn't the only one. Two other men, apparently his friends, were in the bed with her. I stopped cold, my heart pounding in my chest. The deal was that she'd only see one person. That was the agreement. That was our one rule. When my wife saw me, she broke down crying and shouting, trying to explain herself, but her words didn't matter anymore. The men scrambled, grabbing their clothes and making for the exit. Instead of heading for the door, they jumped out the window. Luckily, we live on the ground floor. Rage surged through me, but I kept my composure. My service weapon was still at my side, as always. My wife screamed at me to stop as I rushed outside right as the men ran to their Range Rover. Blinded by anger, I fired a couple of shots at their tires, hitting them squarely. The tires burst, but they still managed to escape, driving away on ruined wheels. I stood there for a moment, adrenaline still pumping, before heading back inside. My wife was waiting, only partially dressed, hysterical, begging me to listen to her, to forgive her. I was beyond caring. What I'd just witnessed left me numb. Without a word, I grabbed my coat and keys, brushed past her, and walked out. She tried to stop me, her voice breaking as she pleaded, but I didn't look back. I was finished believing her lies. I got in my car and drove off, not sure where I was going, only that I needed to get away. Now I'm left here, trying to make sense of how everything ended up this way, uncertain about what comes next. A part of me still smolders with hurt and bitterness, unable to even consider the idea of letting her off the hook. How does anyone recover from a betrayal like this? We'd set clear rules together, agreements meant to keep us safe. But she didn't just bend them. She demolished them entirely, and not just with one person, but several. I thought that opening up our marriage might take some pressure off, ease the friction between us. Now I just feel foolish, tricked into believing it could ever succeed. So now I find myself wandering the streets at night, driving without direction, my mind racing as I try to make sense of what's happened. What am I meant to do now? Should I try to mend what's left? Or is this the end of everything we had? I eventually stopped the car in an empty lot on a road I didn't even know, completely lost, with no sense of where to go next. My thoughts swirled with anxiety and unresolved doubts. Who could I possibly reach out to? My best friend was busy juggling his family and kids, and I couldn't burden him with this chaos. My parents weren't even an option. I just couldn't lay something this heavy on them, at least not yet. I sat by myself in the car for what felt like an eternity, searching for answers, desperate for any path forward. Driven by a mixture of despair and impulse, I finally picked up my phone and dialed her, the same woman I'd run into at the park that afternoon. I told her I needed someone to talk to, and without hesitation, she said yes, her voice bright and welcoming, almost as if she'd been hoping to hear from me. She invited me over, and I found myself agreeing instantly. When I arrived, she opened the door and took one look at me, immediately sensing something was wrong. I must have looked wrecked, but she didn't interrogate me. Instead, she poured us some wine and waited. That's when I finally let it all out. I told her everything. My marriage, the arrangement my wife and I had made, and how my wife had shattered every boundary, bringing other men into our house. She listened closely, never judging, only showing compassion and understanding. She told me that sometimes life throws us into chaos, and all we can do is keep moving forward. She even apologized for being so forward earlier, not realizing the storm I was in. I reassured her that it wasn't her fault at all, and that maybe I was to blame for being so trusting. Before I even realized what I was doing, I leaned in and kissed her, gently at first. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a release, a way to try and erase the pain, to feel something different. The kiss grew more intense, and before long we were swept up in each other, letting the wine and passion take over. The night turned into a blur of laughter, embraces, and empty bottles, and for a little while, I managed to forget all the turmoil in my life. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding head but a surprising sense of peace. The details of the night were hazy, but I knew I'd found the escape I'd been craving. Instead of heading back to my old life, I called in sick, promising myself I'd make it up later. I didn't care. I just wanted to keep running from reality. We decided to keep the fun going and headed over to my place. By the time we got there, my wife was nowhere to be seen, and I realized she barely crossed my mind. I just wanted one more day away from my problems. The rest of that day was just as wild as the night before, and when night fell again, I was completely spent. But what happened the next morning caught me off guard. When I woke up, not only was she beside me, but there were 3 other women in the bed. At first, I thought I was still dreaming, but as I blinked away my confusion, she burst out laughing. "Meet my sisters," she said, still giggling at the look on my face. I must have seemed completely lost, because she quickly added, "You really don't remember, do you?" Apparently, I'd gotten way too drunk the previous night. I had no memory of inviting her sisters to join us, but there they were, real as could be. The shock left me speechless, unsure of how to respond to this bizarre turn of events. Before I could collect myself, the bedroom door swung open, and there stood my wife. She immediately started yelling, her fury filling the room as she took in the sight before her. The sisters scrambled out of bed, faces red with embarrassment, grabbing whatever clothes they could find. I, however, remained strangely calm. I met her gaze and reminded her of her own actions just 2 days earlier. There was no need for raised voices. The situation spoke for itself. I told her it was over, that it was time for her to gather her things and leave. Her betrayal had already destroyed us. There was no repairing what she'd done. She left without a word, gathering her belongings, and her sisters followed, clearly mortified. That left just the 2 of us. I turned to my new partner, still piecing together the chaos of the previous night. I apologized for letting things spiral so far out of control, admitting I shouldn't have drunk so much or acted so recklessly. She said sorry as well, confessing that inviting her sisters had been her idea. We both recognized that neither of us had been thinking clearly. In some strange way, that night closed the chapter on my marriage. Her betrayal had torn my old life apart, but somehow, through an unexpected and almost absurd twist, I'd found a kind of poetic justice, thanks to this new connection. Now, it's something we sometimes laugh about with her sisters. A surreal story from another life. It's just one of those bizarre memories life hands you. These days, I live with her, and our relationship has only gotten stronger. We've left my past behind and built something real, and I'm happier now than I ever imagined I could be. She makes me feel genuinely fulfilled, and I do my best to give her the same. I'm confident we can handle whatever life throws our way, together. It's strange how the universe works. Just when it seems like everything is falling apart, the right person shows up to help you put yourself back together. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.